So I'm just going to share the dream. I've had this dream a while ago, but it's, I feel like I don't know if it's coming to pass or whatnot. So I feel like it's important right now. So,
Okay.
it's about me and James again, my husband. I've had like a bunch of them lately, but, so I wrote it down so I could remember it. So me and James were on like a small raft boat. It was just like,
Mhm.
it honestly looked like a little chunk of wood. It wasn't like a fancy boat. And
Hmm.
so we were just like floating down the ocean, kind of into the unknown, just going. And I didn't see anything in the distance. It was like open water. And then I saw this like, it was almost like an island with like an outlet with like outlet grocery stores. And so I hopped off the boat thing to get food for our family. And as I hopped off onto the that little island, James kept going on the boat. It just kept going. And the island began to run out. And so then I hopped onto the next thing I could see was like a barbed wire fence. So I jumped on it and I was clinging to it for like dear life. And it was above the water. And I knew that if the water would start rising, that I would get electrocuted because I knew the water was going to rise. And so I was like holding on, like, okay, James, come back, or some God help me, like the water's rising. And as the water began to rise super close to the fence, James came back and he grabbed me and we both went underwater together for just a second. And we still were on the boat. We popped up back on the boat. We started going again, same area, same direction, open ocean. And but then we saw to the right of us, we saw this like a lagoon, I guess you would say. It was like, yeah, like a lagoon. And we weren't able to actually physically go there, but we were able to like go there to see what it was like, I guess, mentally. And so we saw it for a moment where there was these tables with food like set up for people. There was just community, there was peace and rest and all the things that we didn't have, I guess, on the boat we were on. And so we really wanted to go there. We're like, how do we get here? Like, how do we get to this place? And we saw the people that were on that little lagoon island thing, because it was like an island also. They were able, so this is the part that I'm confused on, is they were able to go in and out of the lagoon back into the ocean. They could go back and forth, but they had to go through this block of sand. Like they dove through. It was almost like, I don't know, like, I don't know if penguins do this, but it was like they were jumping down, like no big deal. They would just pop down and then pop back up into the ocean and come back. So, anyways, so then we went back to where we actually were. In reality, was the boat, and we saw this like pathway underwater. So we had to go underwater together for just a second, but above the water, it was like a tunnel, like a trail to get there, I guess. And above that little pathway was like a thick layer of sand above us, above the water, that we had to go under to get there. And but we knew, we were really scared because we had to go underwater and hold our breath. But we knew, I somehow knew in the dream that that would only be momentarily and we wouldn't drown. But and then I woke up. But I feel like I'm just kind of, I've been praying so long about this, about the sand. Like, why is there sand above the water? And, you know, God, like, because we're in this actual season, God, how do we get to this next place? Like, what leap of faith do we need to have, or whatnot? So I just wanted to come on and ask for discernment about it. So
Awesome. Well, thank
yeah.
you for sharing. Neil. Neil owned a
It's
boat.
interesting. Yeah, I did. None of them floated though, because we never actually built any. Okay, so this appears to be kind of like a story of your life right now. You know, you're together with your husband. Do you have any kids?
Yeah, we have 4 kids.
But they weren't on the raft with you, were they?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay, so it's just you and your husband. So this is a journey that you're taking together. That you probably already know what kind of journey it is. But you're floating on the ocean, way out in the deep, which is kind of where you want to go when you're traveling with God, is into the deep ocean. Every ocean has a shore, and you get to play on the shore. It's shallow enough for children to play in, but you venture out into the deep ocean and it's deep enough for theologians to drown in. But you're floating. You know, you've got a means to float on. Maybe not the best.
We lost you, Neil. We can't hear you.
Shoot.
Neil, yeah. I hear something, but I'm gonna give him just a second to see if
No,
he
you're
can.
fine.
But well, can
Am
you
I
hear us,
there?
Neil? There you
I
are.
can't really faint. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Am I there?
yes.
Okay. So you're floating on this fantastic vehicle of destiny, a board. You need an upgrade, and I can sell you one. I've got a great design for a boat. Okay, so you're floating along in the water. This is just your journey. You know, you're out there in the deep with God. You know, you're in the depths. You're not in trouble. There's no tsunami that's going to tip you over. You're just floating along, and you find a place, a kind of a sanctuary, this island out in the middle of nowhere with groceries. And so that's you know some of the provisions that God provides for us. And you jump off, but James stays on the boat, raft, board, and you pick up your groceries. And you know, as a provider for the family, you're providing for them. So it's you know, this is sustenance to keep you alive. It's the manna from out in the middle of the desert, but you're in an ocean. So it's things that you know, it's not the milk of the gospel. It's the meat. It's the food that keeps you alive as an adult believer, not as a child. So James goes floating off. So there's a point where you two are separated for some reason. He floats off, and you're looking for groceries. And the only thing you find to jump on is a barbed wire fence, which really isn't very comfortable, I imagine, to jump onto. It floats, it keeps you above the water, but that's going to be whatever that is, it's a painful experience. So, and you knew if you let go of it and the water rose above, you'd be electrocuted. Is that right?
Hmm.
Okay, so
I don't know if it was a good electrocution or not.
yeah, something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a word of knowledge of something that's coming, that that you can avoid by hanging on to what you got, even though it would be in your natural mind, you would think, let go of the barbed wire fence. This is really hurting, and float. But it's the opposite is true. So it's almost like it's counterintuitive of what you have to do to not be electrocuted or die in this situation. And so as the water rose, James came to your rescue and got you, right? So now you're back together again, and you're continuing on. You're back out in the ocean, and you know, so this was an encounter. This was a temporary encounter. Whatever it's going to be temporary. You're going to get through it. It's going to be painful, perhaps, but James is going to come back and rescue you. You two will get through this together. So it's kind of a call for you and James to partner with each other on, you know, spiritual warfare and just praying together and being together as a husband and wife. So farther up, you continue on the ocean. There's a lagoon on the right. That's seems kind of like, to me, this lagoon that's kind of an island, and with all the people on it, it's kind of like paradise. And this is a place that you're floating along, and you don't go there physically, but you take a spiritual journey in your brains and see what's there. So it's almost like the window of heaven is opened up for you, and you can see. This is a seer vision, a seer gifting that you have, that you are able to see beyond the veil, beyond what is humanly possible, to see into this other place. It's almost a view of heaven. So it's this place that's just got tables of food. It's peace. It's peaceful. It's restful. It's just paradise. You know, this is where you want to be. And so the way you get in and out of that lagoon in the island is you see the people jumping through the sand. That's kind of like you dive through the sand in order to get into the water, under the water, and then back up into the water. But everybody has to pass through the filter of the sand, right?
Yep.
And so when you get back to the boat, or spiritually get back to the boat, it's like, okay, it's almost like the the 10 spies that went into Canaan and they saw all this. It's the land of plenty. We want to be there, and but you can't figure out how to get there. So the way you figure it out is that there's this tunnel that goes. That's like a trail that goes under it. You have to jump into the water and then through a thick layer of sand. I think sand in this case, it's a filter that you're going to have to pass through. In water filtration systems, it's what cleans out things. Sand is a cleanser. It's a filter. It cleans out a lot of things. In this case, it's almost reminiscent of it's the filter of cleansing of sin out of your body. Even though the true cleansing of sin comes through the blood of Jesus, it seems like this is something that you're going to have to pass through in order to get through to this heavenly place. So it's kind of scary, just like I'm sure there's a couple different births that we go through. One is a physical birth, and that's kind of scary for the baby because being born is probably a traumatic experience for both of you, for mom and for the child. The next one, we're born as sinners into a world that is full of sin, and we have to be born again. And literally, you're dead, and so you're birthed again in the spiritual sense. And then you have one more birth that has to take place, and that's after our physical death. You're born into heaven, basically. We have to pass through death in order to be born again. So twice. When you're born, you're dead in your sins. When you're dead in your body, and you move on to heaven. So the thick layer of sand, I think, it's a barrier layer that you have to pass through, and you can get through it, even though it's scary. It's a one-time shot, and you're going to get through it. So, I don't think it's anything to worry about. You're brave enough to go through it. You've seen other people do it. Other people have gone before you, the people on the island. So you have an example of how to do it. And so whatever this is that you're going to pass through is not to be feared. You're going to go through it together with your husband too. So that's all I got. So John, I don't know if any of that resonates with you or if it fits into what's going on in your life.
Yeah, no, it does. It's really good.
Yeah. I really like the part in particular about the birthing. The idea of going through sand is representative of unknown, right? A house built on sand is unsteady. It's kind of shaky. It's like, I don't know, versus a solid foundation. And the one thing that you were afraid of in the dream, especially when you're hanging onto the barbed wire, was the idea of dropping into the water. And what you have to do in order to get to this place that God's given you a vision for, which is a place of family and a place of community and fellowship and a place where you and your husband want to be. You want to raise your kids with other people's kids. You want to just live in this kind of wonderful place of community. Is you have to go deep. You have to go deep, and it's kind of unsteady at first. That's the idea of going into the water, and then the sand is the idea that if you've ever been part of a church, my mom always told me, if you find the perfect church, don't go. Because then it won't be perfect anymore, because you'll be there. So if you've ever been a part of a church or a community and you've gotten hurt and you've kind of withdrawn and been like, oh my gosh, and we really got to be careful who we let in our lives. And, you just don't want the drama, but we all want that community. And it's the idea of having to go to a depth and coming up, through the uncertainty, the shifting part of getting to know somebody. Like, how do you ever know anybody until you spend time with them and you build relationship? And at the end of the day, love is a decision. Love and community it's a force of our will. People talk about falling in love and they just as easily fall out of love. But if you find somebody that you can run with, if you find a group of people that are moving in the same direction, that believe like you do, that are willing to take the risks that you and your family want to be together in community and move in a particular direction and create the world around you that you want to have, which is, sharing and caring and building this thing together where it's not just you guys alone drifting on this boat and the water's rising, but having that place of security in a community. It takes risk. And that's what I feel like God is saying, is just be willing to go deep and take the risk, even though it's uncertain at the beginning, and let him show you. Sometimes relationships shift. I was in the military, and so every couple of years, you're moving in different churches and different people in different cities. And sometimes it's difficult because it feels like, man, everything around us is shifting. But you can find a home and a community, and you can also be that place for other people. I think one of the interesting parts of the dream is realizing that probably behind you somewhere, coming down this waterway is another couple, and they're going to have a vision of the community that you are now in and a part of, and you're going to be their view of heaven. They're going to want to have a family like yours that they can connect with, that can be an anchor in times of trouble. And a lot of times we want to fit into a community and feel loved, but are we willing to be that community for other people? So I think it's a powerful dream. And I think the dream, the actionable intelligence is to take the risk, to be a part of a community that you see, or to form a community that is something that you and others would want to be a part of.
Yeah, the other part that I missed was when you're on that board, like with a boat, there's a prime mover on it, there's a propeller, and there's a rudder that can steer you wherever you want to go, at the speed you want to go, as fast as the boat will take you. But on that board, you're just drifting. So I don't know if you feel like you in your life now that you're just kind of drifting kind of aimlessly, but you don't have any control over the direction that you're going. But in this case, the direction, it's not really up to you, the direction that you're going. God's providing the direction for you. He's the one who's pushing that board first to the island that has provisions that you didn't know about, you didn't see, but all of a sudden it was there. And the second time he pulls you to a place, was in this place of paradise. That's just a beautiful place. So it's not by any effort of your own that you're going to get there. It's God's going to take you there.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's powerful.